Welcome to Celebrity CLE. My name is Rick Goldberg, and I'll be your moderator today. Joining me today is Steve Susman of the Houston-based firm of Susman Godfrey. In his first 25 years, Steve and his firm have won more than $2 billion in verdicts and more than $200 million in settlements, securing his place as one of the nation's top lawyers. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Steve, before we launch into focus groups, I'd like to first ask you, what inspired you to get into the practice of law?
Both my mother and father were lawyers. I didn't have much of a choice. My dad was a trial lawyer in Houston, and my mother was one of the first women in Texas to become a lawyer in the early 30s. And so, two parents lawyers, what else was I going to do? It's that simple.
When you look at a case, because I know you're brought the creme de la creme of cases, when you look at a case, what goes through your head? How do you start evaluating a lawsuit?
Well, I think there's several guidelines I use in evaluating a lawsuit. Number one and foremost is that the case is never worth as much as it is the first day you hear about it. It always depreciates in value because there are always spots on the carpet and things that you do not know about that you find out, things in the woodpile you find out about after you're into the case. So all cases go down in value, and you've got to keep that in mind. And the real trick of a good trial lawyer is to minimize the depreciation in value. The second guideline that I kind of use is that the clients there, almost always the clients I deal with, I do commercial litigation. And I typically represent plaintiffs, although I do some defense work. But my clients are typically small businessmen, entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs are salesmen, and they are there to sell me their lawsuit. So I've got to really look very critically at what they are saying. They also have been shopping around to a lot of lawyers. They get some crazy ideas about what the law is and what the value of their case is. But those are kind of things. I mean, the main thing in a case is I used to think that if you had a case that had real big damages, your liability could be real thin, you know. Okay, so it's close on liability, but hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you have got to take a case. I mean, are you going to win this case? And if the answer is you're, and besides, I mean, when you do plaintiff's work, and the only way you should do plaintiff's work is on a contingent fee basis. So you've got to, I mean, you're making an investment. It's an investment that usually lasts for 4 or 5 years, or can, and it can involve millions of dollars of your time. In many cases, millions of dollars of out-of-pocket expense that the lawyer has to pay. So and the client doesn't give you a lot of time to make the investment decision because he's shopping the case around to other lawyers. Or maybe there's some statute of limitations problem that he has to get it filed quickly. Or maybe he wants to file a case quickly to cause pressure on the defendant who's trying to engage in some business transaction, a merger or sale or something like that. And so there's some urgency on getting the case filed. So, I mean, the lawyer has got to, I mean, the lawyer who's going to make any money doing this has got to, take good cases, make his decision quickly about whether he's going to take the case, that's pretty much the way I look at it.
Well, you mentioned earlier about making an investment in the case. One such investment is a mock trial or a focus group. Can you tell us initially what the difference is in your head between a mock trial and a focus group?
Well, I think the difference between a mock trial and a focus group is a mock trial to me is you have lawyers playing from your firm who play both sides. One represents the defendant, one represents the plaintiff. We actually, in our firm, when we do this case, we try to put the stronger lawyer, or the most senior lawyer, on the opposite side that we're on, so we don't skew the results. I mean, it doesn't do any good to go there. One thing you learn about trial work is never underestimate the other lawyer. He's going to be much better at the courthouse than you ever expect he will be. And the second thing is that the opposing party is not stuck with that lawyer in any event. Many times you see a new face show up to try the lawsuit. So the best thing is to put your strongest lawyer on the opposite side, playing the opposite side, and then it essentially is the lawyers argue, probably an hour each, The argument is introducing evidence, showing documents, showing excerpts perhaps of testimony, or certainly reading testimony to the mock jury. And then the jurors, you might even put on some videotape depositions as evidence. There might be a closing statement. But ultimately, the mock jurors are divided into panels, and they go and deliberate in separate rooms, and they deliberate as real jurors with real instructions. And, of course, you're able to observe. And this methodology that's used by most trial lawyers, and frankly, I believe that if you have a case that involves substantial money, you need to do a mock trial. It's just worth it. But I was thinking, when did I begin doing this? What made it possible, Rick, was technology. I mean, really, video cameras technology like we have today, but video technology where you could put a video camera in a room with a group of people and watch through a monitor in a remote place their deliberations. And before that, you couldn't really do a mock trial as such. Now, a focus group is where you just get a group of people together, and you have a moderator, usually probably someone like you, a consultant, who will read a neutral statement to the group of people, maybe some of what both sides say, and then you get their reaction, but not in a jury-like setting. You'll read them a statement, and then you'll begin asking them questions. Well, what do you think about this? What more information do you need to? Who are you leaning for? Does this offend anyone? Et cetera, et cetera. And it's not close to the real trial setting. But it also, and people say it's good because it takes the lawyer out of the equation. I mean, whoever's reading it's clearly not a lawyer and clearly not an advocate. And there are many consultants that will tell you that the lawyers don't make a difference, that it's just the fact pattern, the story, and that makes a difference, and that the best way to get a realistic view of what people think is to take the lawyers out of the equation. I disagree because I think mock trials need to be conducted for other purposes.
So you conduct more of an adversarial mock trial?
Yeah, we do it for several reasons. Number one is lawyers. If I get two lawyers in my firm with their competitive juices, I mean, keep in mind we're partners in the same law firm, but we are real serious enemies when we go to one of these mock trials. And because after it, there's bragging rights. I beat Susman, or I beat whoever I'm against. You whooped them at the mock trial, and they plan seriously, and they work seriously, and they come up with the best arguments. And that kind of adversarial competitive juices flowing produces the best arguments for both sides, in my opinion. It gives the client an opportunity, which is very important, because the clients always observe these. It gives a client an opportunity to see how their lawyer does on their feet. Do I like what I'm seeing? Is this the right person to try the case? I've seen clients come to these things and say, the young lawyer you had on the other side of you, Susman, was so good, we think he should take the lead role in the trial. We liked his style. Or say something else. I mean, but so you test all those things with the mock trial where you don't do it in the focus group.
You mentioned having the client at the mock trial. Do you try and test the client who might be sitting next to you as a corporate representative for a 2 or 3 month trial? Do you like to try and test him at the mock trial as well?
No, I mean, you can't, test him. You don't have a camera, if you mean by having a camera on his face to see what his facial expression, that's mainly what you need to do with your client who's sitting in the courtroom, is to make sure that they sit there deadpan during the trial. Some hard for some people, but I don't find that, after the first day I can really jump on I watch them in court and tell them, none of these smiles, don't break into applause when we do something good, and don't have a big frown when something bad happens. And they can solve that problem very quickly. But the reason you have a client there is, these are very useful to settle cases. It gives a client a dose of reality. They see, when we have these mock trials, we typically we get in 36 people, and we'll divide into 3 juries. So you have 3 different juries deliberating. And you get to watch them simultaneously or whenever you need to, and of course it's all videotaped for watching later. And it really gives a client a good idea of this case got real problems. I mean, if you're the plaintiff on the case and you get a mixed bag, 2 juries go for you but one's against you, that's not good. Or if you see them go back and deliberate and they're split equally and they're not really mad where on the first vote they vote in your favor, that's not good. And so your client needs to see that because it's, and even if it doesn't result in a settlement of the case, it tempers the client's expectations when you come to trial. I mean, they know, if you lose a case, well, they know they lost the mock trial 3 times. And so they aren't so mad at you. So, I mean, there are a lot of reasons to have the client there. And they have great ideas about, one of the things I do with the clients is I send them before we do one of these things. I've gotten to this issue. I send them a written argument on both sides. So they know what the lawyers are going to say. And they have an opportunity to edit it and have input to it. So they don't come out of this exercise, which is expensive. It can run, $40,000, $50,000. They don't come out of the exercise thinking, oh, it wasn't reliable because my lawyer didn't make the right arguments. Or it wasn't reliable because the other side made some unfair arguments. They won't be able to make a trial. And so you let the client be very active in participating in that so they feel that this is their opportunity to test what they think their best story is.
Sounds like a real collaborative approach.
Yeah, it is.